Welcome everybody to our second session of Synagogue Tech. I hope you are enjoying yourself where you're watching us from. Sorry, my microphone has fallen off my ear. Doesn't help. So thank you for joining us here today. We've had some major changes, so everything. The whole point of this thing is to see how we move forward, and we're moving forward with you, and we also have moved forward. So the big first thing that you'll see is we are now in full 1080p Technicolor, everything high definition, and we're in Zoom webinar. So we have to first of all thank DVE Store, who have been helping us, and they've assisted us with a 1080p version of Zoom. So if you're wondering why this Zoom doesn't look like the Zoom you're used to, that is the big reason. We've got a pack show, but before we get to the pack show, as we've always said, is the way for you to drive this show forward is your questions. Your questions are the key as to what we do. You put your questions in using the link in Slido. The link will be in if you're watching in Facebook or in YouTube, you'll have a link beneath for Slido. If you have joined us in Zoom, which anybody is welcome to join us in Zoom, there will be a link in the Zoom chat straight to Slido. As you put in your questions, they will come up. So the first thing that we're going to put in here is a question that's got an active question, which is how long have you been streaming in Zoom? Or how long have you been streaming your services? So if you have a look on the Slido link that you've got, you will be able to see that, and we will see these questions come up real time on here. So please enter your questions so we can see and get a judge for how people are working. Real-time dynamic, you're updating those answers as we go through. Thank you. So who is on the panel, and how do we, as I said, I've covered how we answer questions, but now I'd like to introduce the panel. My name is Leo Mindell. I'm involved in setting up the streaming at a number of synagogues in the UK, and I've been involved in 70 plus events in the Jewish world since the pandemic started, as well as streaming for a number of years before. To introduce you around the panel, next up I'm going to ask Marty, and then followed by Igor. No, I'm going to jump to Igor, followed by JLo.
Hello, everybody. My name is Igor Zinkov. I am a rabbi at the Liberal Jewish Synagogue in London. And I guess that for this session, what is relevant is to say that I was in the team which coordinated the upgrade of the live stream in our synagogue.
Next up is JLo. And then I'll go straight to Tobias.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna. I am an audio engineer by training. Spent about 10 years in the recording studio business in New York City. The next 10 years as a choir director for a small church in New Jersey. And the last 5 years in the AV integration space and learning all about streaming.
Next up we have is Guy, and then Oren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tobias Moss. I'm a rabbi in Minneapolis, and I'm also a musician. So I've been helping the synagogue pull all of that into Zoom worship and Zoom events the best we can.
Great. Next up I have on my list, I've got Brett, followed by Rabbi David. Shouldn't actually do that because there's half the panel are rabbis, and I'll just say Brett and then David. We did agree that.
Hi, my name is Brett. I'm a rabbi in Florida, as well as a music director at a synagogue. We've been streaming for about 6 years. And so over that time, we've gone through a whole lot of tinkering and toying around. And so I've had a lot of fun learning all of this stuff. So I'm happy to help.
Thank you. I have going to go to David, Crystal, and then Oren.
Did Guy get to go? Did I miss Guy?
You didn't. I'm going through he didn't.
I thought you called him. I apologize. Hi, I'm David. I'm from in Miami, Florida, and I am the Torah tech guy, helping people get the most out of their Torah and their tech.
So why I missed Guy by accident is as the screens move around, I had actually got Tobias to add me as co-host, which then moved everybody's screen. So don't ask in the middle of a show to change something. So Tobias, can you drop me off co-host? So I'm going to get Guy, followed by Crystal, and then John.
Hey, my name's Guy. I'm from the DVE store. We're a video equipment dealer. We've been around for about 17 years. We help a lot of churches with tech. And I'm also part of another show called Office Hours, which is very similar. And I know a couple of people like Leo, so I'm glad to be a part of the panel and see what you guys are up to and help in any way that I can.
So then I've got Oren. I've got to get me and Oren, John, and then we'll roll back to hopefully Marty has fixed his tech problems.
Okay, hi, I'm Oren. I'm a rabbi in Elmira, New York, also a musician with a dirty past in sound engineering. Been streaming for just over a year, just before the pandemic started. Happy to be here.
John and then Marty while I fix my headphones.
Hi, this is John, and I'm zooming in from Monterey, California. I'm a retired university professor, failing retirement, but in the area of telecommunications and do a lot of work with the state parks, and I'm excited to be on this panel.
So last up, I think, is Marty.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Marty Atias, and are you hearing me? Are you hearing me?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm an audio engineer, and anybody can have issues, and a video engineer and a contractor, and I host another show that's very similar called the Hybrid Ministries Tech Forum. I'm also on Office Hours.
So you heard there's a big panel here today to answer your questions. As I said, the main thing is to ask your questions that you put in the into Slido. That's the way we can you ask the questions. We're getting a number of questions in and we will be putting them up. So this is a great way for you to drive the answers and the questions where you're coming from. Did I miss anybody off?
Yeah.
I missed Crystal off, didn't I? I missed Crystal off. I could see that I've missed Crystal off. I'm really sorry, Crystal.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Crystal. My background actually is in gaming, which is where I learned how to stream, do a lot of streaming for that, conventions, what have you, tech for that. I've been on the internet since the early days and love tech. So that's kind of my background. I do work with the Unitarian Universalist Church now, helping them get hybrid.
Great. So we have a superb speaker today leading our first session, which is Efrat. She's going to cover various subjects. I will let her introduce herself and her subjects. If you want questions will be at the end, but please put those questions in. And as you put the questions in, you can vote on the ones that you want to have answered. Efrat, I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Leo. Nice to be here. Hello, everyone. A little bit about me. I came to this through music. I started out, I've been a musician and performer, singer, songwriter, composer, and all of those things, multi-instrumentalist for about all my life. Been doing that professionally for over 20 years. And I got into video because I got sick of paying videographers to not do what I asked them to. I know nobody's ever experienced that before, right? So I started making videos for myself, for my own music performances. And apparently some people thought I had a good eye and said, can you do it for me? And the next thing I know, I'm making videos for people. And then pandemic happened. And I got asked, can you make a choir video? And I said, well, I think I could figure it out. I'm pretty tech oriented. And since then I've made over 50 choir videos with anywhere from 6 people to over 50 people in them, with designs, animations, all sorts of fun things that you can do with them. So that's how I got to it. And you may have seen me, if any of you know who Magda Fishman is, from Nitora. Mm-hmm. There's only one choir video in the last year since the pandemic that wasn't me. The rest, all of her choir videos, that's me. So she's one of the bigger names that people tend to know. So I mentioned her because you might have seen. I work in video and I do a little bit of audio, but more audio inside video when that's possible, which it is if you have a good choir. If you basically, it's possible if you have, as long as you don't need pitch correction, which some people do, some people don't. So I actually am going to email or put in chat right now a little outline of what I set up to talk about today. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it really depends on who's here, what you want from me and need from me. There's so many facets to recording a video. And so many parts, and I don't know what people need the most. So I set up a little list of a basic overview. I'm going to actually hit enter now and send that to you all through chat so you can see. And, you know, please feel free. I'm going to start going through this list and just talking a little bit about all these things, but feel free if there's some things that you especially want more detail on, just let me know and I can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to try and go through this really fast so that I can then go into more detail with what you guys want, because everybody has different things they need to know and want to know. And I don't want to waste time. I want you all to get what you need. So without further ado, let's talk about video. I do choir videos as well as regular videos, which means just a band or just even a cantor. How do you make them interesting? All sorts of things. So the most important thing that people want to know is why choir videos. I'm going to say this. For concerts where I've done choir videos, even if they only do one choir video, you see way more attendance because everybody who's in that choir is going to want to attend. They're going to want all their friends to come and see them. So it's a great way to really get more people involved. Choir videos can be a little more expensive than other videos, but if you shop around and also realize that there's many different levels of choir videos. I always tell people, if you want a choir video, we'll work with you. Everybody has a different budget. So you can do anything from the simplest of choir videos, which is basically arranging everybody in squares without animations, without changes, for affordable for anybody. But if you have more money, you can do all sorts of interesting things. I did a video recently where we did One Love, and there were 45 choir members, and I arranged them in a heart around the cantors for part of the song. One, you know, went to different things. There's so many options. So, but it's a great way. It's a really, I think, the best way to get, one of the best ways, other than having people actually interactive things. It's one of the best ways to get people to come to online shows while we still can't get them here. And one of the great things that I've learned from all of this in the pandemic is that we can continue a lot of these things because there's still always going to be people who can't make it for whatever disabilities. It's hard for them to get out, and being able to include people from everywhere is always a great thing. So let's get down to video. I am set up actually in my little studio right here. I'm going to show you. Watch this. So this is my green screen studio. You don't have to have one. All you have to have is a blank wall, actually. And with a blank wall, most videographers can use what's called a chroma key to green screen you anyway. So let's talk about setup. It really depends on what kind of video you're making. But I think the most important thing is to know that a blank background is best when you can. But it's not as important as getting good lighting and good sound. Videographers can change the background to an extent. One thing to know about that is that the less you move, the easier that is for us. So we have some cantors who especially like to move a lot, which always makes it more interesting when they want you to green screen in somewhere. But let's talk a little bit about that. I also want to know, is there any, let me ask you guys, is there something in specific that you'd like to know more about in terms of setting up for recording? I can tell you about what I have here and various options. I also want you to know about making sure to get, you know, a lot of the people who are involved in making the choir videos tend to be the older generation, which are more afraid of doing these kind of things because some of them are afraid of tech. They haven't been doing it their whole lives and they don't want to. So how we can also talk about how to deal with that. One of the things I've done is I actually have 2 videos, and I'm going to, let me just get the links and I'm going to share them with you. And these videos are actually ones that for the cantors that I work with, whenever I make a choir video, I send this to them and for them to give to their choir members, anybody who wants to be involved. And it basically walks them through the process, which already makes it 10 times easier for somebody who's nervous about this. There's a lot of different things that go into setup when it comes to making a choir video that you want your choir to look at. For example, phone and camera settings. Depending on the phone and camera, it's going to be different how you do it, but all phones have a settings app or folder. So while some of them you can get there directly from your camera, some of them you can get there from the settings app. And I usually tell people to do, to go in, I'll show you right here what I usually tell people to do. I'm going to go from my camera because it's easier for me because I know how to do that there. Then I don't have to search through the settings apps really quick. Is it going to show me? Okay. Nope. And of course, now it's not showing me. There we go. But 60 frames per second is usually a good one, and almost all of them have that. So that's a good one to ask people to set. But again, worst to worst, there's always ways around it for those that can't make a setting. The most important thing is just to get them to make a video. As for lighting, I actually have lighting here. I wanted to set up just so I could show you guys what I have. I have this, hold on, big light right there. And I have another one off to the side here. And when I'm making an actual video, I also have back reflectors back here that I put up. I purposefully didn't put any powder on because I wanted you to see how shiny it is when I'm close up without powder, because I get tons of canters with this issue. I've bought a smooth finish, or I actually found a free, I use Final Cut Pro, and I found a free plug-in that can smooth the face, and with it you can take some shine. But I tell all of them, buy some cheap powder. All the women have powder. So if you're a guy also, you got to do this if you don't want to look really shiny and you've got lighting on you, because lighting will make you look shiny. But all guys have friends who are female and neighbors, and Amazon these days, if you're not going out, you can get powder delivered. Get some cheap powder. Doesn't matter. I want you guys to see the difference. I didn't put any on first, just so you would see. And I'm purposely getting right up in the lighting because I have 2 canters that I've dealt with this over and over. So this is I'm just going to show you what a difference a little bit of powder can make right now. Never done this on camera before, but I really wanted people to see what a huge difference it makes. I'm just going to put it on this little part. I just want you to notice the difference. Do you see the difference? Big, right? And now, of course, I'm too close to the camera, and or to the lights, and that's one of the reasons it was happening in the first place. If I back up, it's going to be even better. I always tell people when making videos to back up, make sure that you can see at least a few inches around on top of your head and past your shoulders. And you want to see the top half of your torso, because we can zoom in, but we can't zoom out on you if you're like this. And I have gotten people sending in choir videos where they're just like this, and then they don't, and what happens there, again, there are always ways around that. There are always things we can do, but your congregants want to look good. They're going to want to do this more if they look good afterwards. And just tiny little bits of tips like this are going to make them happier with their results and make them want to do this even more and be really excited about getting involved in more of these. And I have seen that happen. I'll say that whoever your videographer is or video editor is, whoever you're working with, you want to maybe, if possible, set up a Zoom meeting with them and your congregants, where congregants can come in and ask questions, because the truth is we all have our own tricks. So we all have our own desires in terms of what we think is going to make it easier for us to make a good video for our clients. So I really highly recommend, if you have one that's willing to do that. I love doing that because I get an easier time when I'm making my videos. I save so much time in the end by having a 1-hour meeting with congregants who want to come in. So I highly recommend that to all rabbis and cantors doing this, because it makes a huge difference. People feel more comfortable about recording if they can be part of this and ask questions to the person they know is going to be seeing this and dealing with it. So that's a great thing. So this is all about organizing and sharing and phone camera settings, getting ready to record. Let's talk about the spaces, sounds, and lights real quick. I did that a little backwards. Spaces, sounds, and lights. I did show you a little bit about lighting, what a difference it can make. Powder, that's all you need. Nothing else, just powder, okay? Even if you're a guy. You can get shiny, and when you're under lights, you will get shiny because they make you sweat. So get over the I'm a guy, I don't want to wear makeup, because they do it on camera all the time, and now we're all on camera, so we all got to do it. As far as lights, people are worried, well, I don't have good lighting. I don't, how am I going to do this choir video? This isn't what I usually do. I don't have good lighting. Okay, guess what? You have sunlight. Even if you don't have light in your house, you have a window that you can be near. And if you set it up properly, you might get a big shine on the back, but it's actually going to be a really cool effect. And the videographer will know how to use that. There are always ways around it. So when it comes to spaces, I have two videos. I'm going to show you the other video now, which actually shows different ways to set up where you can make a great video of yourself. Now, another thing I didn't write in there, getting ready to record. This is something that's very important for the cantor or the rabbi who's setting up everything for a choir video. The industry standard has been to send an audio track for people to record against. Mistake, big mistake. Especially this, even if it's a professional choir, and I'm going to tell you why. And I know a lot of people are like, what? But this is how we've all been doing it. Yes, it works, but you've given the videographer much more work, the audio engineer much more work, and you're not going to get as good an effect. And I'll tell you why. When we're recording, when we're singing music together in a choir, I'm a singer as well, so it's good. I get to see this from both sides. When you're singing in a choir, you have somebody in front of you leading. They're moving with the music. That makes a big difference on the two most important things when it comes to audio editing, which is entrances and endings. You want people to come in together, you want them to end together. Even if you have a video for them to watch rather than an audio, there's still going to be issues with that, but you're going to have a lot less. I've seen this over and over. I've recommended it and worked with the same groups of people, once where we had audio tracks, once where they had video, and it was a world of difference. That means so many things, because I am able to finish faster. When I'm able to finish faster, I have more time to do extra things. So it's very important to think about that. Now, the most important thing for making video, self-checks and looking at the video afterwards. I can't tell you, just yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine who also does videos, that he had to redo a video really quick for Passover because one of the cantors who's singing had a big booger in their nose. And they didn't realize it because they did watch their video, but only on a small screen. So this is what I'm going to say. Everyone has, almost everyone has a large screen TV somewhere in their house. All you need is an HDMI cable, connect it to your computer, connect it to your TV, and check yourself. Now, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, do it through QuickTime, pull it on the other screen, and at the bottom, just pull the slider across, and you can check a 10-minute video within a span of 1 minute long. So cantors who don't have time, there is always a way. You just have to know the trick. But I can't tell you, I found blueberries in teeth. I was way too close and my wrinkles were showing. I mean, so many issues that can be fixed by two things. Number one, checking yourself in the mirror before you do it, before every song, especially if you have a shake next to you that you're drinking in between songs or something you're snacking on. Anytime you drink or eat, you got to check yourself again. You wouldn't believe how many. I know I see somebody laughing, but you would not believe how many times I've redone videos. Yeah, everything's great, but oh my God, how I look, I didn't realize. So I can't stress that enough. Please tell your people, watch your videos, because if you don't and we have problems, that's how you're gonna look. All right, equipment. Everybody, I just mentioned making videos. So let's talk about that really quick in terms of equipment. It's really easy. You do your audio recording first, and then you sing along to it while making a video of yourself. That's the video that your congregants follow. And that way they have the music in the background. You're singing out loud to it. You don't even have to wear earphones because you've got it playing behind you, and they can hear the music, how it's going to go. And the more you move, because this isn't a video that you're using for your video, the better your congregants are going to be together, and you're going to hear the difference versus doing it with audio tracks. I guarantee you. And your videographers and your audio people are going to love you and do extras for you because of that, because they'll have more time. Camera, iPhone, iPad, you need two, that's all. One to view the video, one to take the video. Doesn't matter which two. The larger one you should view, the smaller one you can put right in front. I'm gonna send you that other link right now to the other video, which actually is a great one it's called Hacks for Computer and Phone and Video Placement. And it actually shows you how to use a table and a bunch of books, or a bookshelf that you have, or a desk to make it the right height, and to use lighting to be able to get the best video possible. All right, so I'm not going to go too much into that now. If you guys want more, and that I'll give you later, but because those videos could tell you a lot about that. Earphones, how to hide them. I'm wearing these because I like the sound because they're nice, but when I'm making a video, it depends. Sometimes I want the earphones to show because sometimes you do, it's the idea, but other times you don't. Very, very simple fix. I'm going to take this off so I won't be able to hear anybody, but you'll be able to hear me. All you have to do is get earphones like this, and where'd my tape go? I had tape, but I can't find it. But the secret is, it's especially easy if you have long hair, but even if you don't, not so hard. You guys may already know this trick, but I'm going to show you because I love it. And some people really, it makes a difference to them. So you just put them in from the back. If you have one that has audio, you can actually tape it, use tape to tape it right there so that you'll get a good sound. And I use clear tape, which I put out so I could show you, and I can't find it now. And you can tape these back like this, and they're barely seen. Some people you can even get clear ones for those who do this a lot. So just an option so you guys can see that really quick. Oh, I'm trying to go through fast because I know I can talk. So I'll do more when you guys want to, with what you want to know. Lighting, natural manufactured. So right now I want you guys to know what kind of lighting I use. It looks pretty good, right? Especially when I'm back here. It looks really nice, right? These are cheap Home Depot lights. The trick is the bulb, not the light. And you don't even have to buy diffusers. Just get a large sheet of very thin paper. So I'm all about, who knows how long we're going to do this and how long it's going to last. Find what you can around the house if possible. So I did spend money on a bulb. I have right here, I have one really, really strong bulb because you need one strong bulb and you can have another one. Right now you have all the shadows because I'm sitting in front of my mic too. But when I'm back here, it's very nice. But a really strong bulb you can buy on Amazon. I got a 3000K bulb. And you want about, this one's, I'm sorry, 6,000K lumens, I think is what it's called. And they say between 5,000 to 10,000 lumens will give you a natural daylight look. Again, if you're using lights, you're going to want to use powder. The biggest secret with that, one in front, one slightly to the side, another one that's got a little less light off to the other side, more at an angle. If you have a white wall, it'll bounce it off and reflect it to get a nice backlight. If you don't, there's all sorts of tricks for doing that. Or my favorite hack, you guys know those little lights you use on music stands? You can clip them on the back. And that way, if you're a moving musician, like I am sometimes, you get that nice backlight without having a backlight and seeing it when you're moving in the video. Just a little trick that I found from somebody else. That's fun. All right. So programs for video editing. There are so many. The three that I went to see, what does it say when I type into Google, what are the, industry standards? And the same three pretty much come up all over the place, but there's 20 more that come up on each. So the three that you see the most are Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, and Avid. But there's many others, and I don't believe that. I love Final Cut Pro, but that's what I started on after iMovie. I believe they all have their pros and cons. It's just like Logic versus Pro Tools. We can argue till the sun comes up about what's better and why. I work with another videographer a lot because I do more of the choir and he does more of the singles. And so we actually give each other work and we have too much. And I found that it's also good to work with another videographer just to get ideas and see what you're missing, because we all have different eyes and different visions and different ways of seeing things. And, I was able to find a great skin smoother, which I can use for some of my cantors that really want that. And he couldn't. So for example, he sends them to me, but there's overall, they're very, very similar, very interesting. I can go into details. That might be a whole nother talk about how to use Final Cut Pro to do videos, but it really doesn't matter what you use. What I will say is the best way to learn is YouTube. Sometimes you'll have to go through 10 videos to find what you're actually looking for. And other times playing around on it. Also, there are some things that I could not find anywhere how to do, but I knew they were possible. I just had it in my head. I was like, I know I can do this because I've seen it on videos. I just have to figure out how. And I watched 20. I'm trying to remember. There was something just this week that I was trying to do and I couldn't figure out how to do. I watched 20 videos, could not find the answer. It had to do with anchor points. and masks. And I couldn't find the answer. And so finally, I just went in and I took in a trash video that I didn't care what happened to it. And I just played around and tried every little button and I figured it out. So there's that, but YouTube is a great resource. Plugins versus do-it-yourself. Okay, so this is sort of like talking about, this is just a little bit getting into programs. All programs will have automatic transitions, things like that. It really depends on preference. I like to not use any of those and create my own. I think they end up looking better because every video is different and those have what's called basically set parameters in how they work. Whereas when you learn to do it yourself, you can do them all your own. But, you know, plugins versus do it yourself. It's like, you know, you're going to have some cantors who are just not going to put the powder on. I have one in specific. I keep reminding her. I think I have to send it to her, but just never happened. So, you know, I finally had to figure out something for that. The last one, to green screen or not, and cool additions to collaborations. So I'm green screening for fun right now, just because, hey, happy Passover. See, it's my mama's Passover plate. Haha. I put that together in Photoshop right before, just for fun. Green screen is great. Sometimes it's not great, others. It really depends on a couple different things. Depends on your videographer and if they have experience with it. I've had some awesome green screen things. I did one actually with Magda and Randy Herman recently, where they had a combined choir from their two synagogues singing. And this is actually the same one, the One Love, where I had the hearts around them. And Magda saw the light that Randy had and was like, oh, that light is so cool. How can I get a light like that? And I was like, do green screen. So she did a new video with green screen and I popped her in and there she had the lighting. So really, it's up to you. It can be a lot of fun. It can do a lot of cool things. I've done videos with green screen, without green screen. It really depends. And I would say it also depends on who's involved and what they're doing and the spaces. Green screens are wonderful if you're in New York City or in a big city and you have tiny spaces and bookshelves on every wall. I want to tell you about my green screen here really quick because it's amazing. Like I'm in Jersey now, so I have tons of space, more than I need really. But I lived in New York in a one-room apartment with everything on the wall completely taken. And hold on, if I take this out, I want to tell you about my green screen real quick, so you know. When I got this, it's a sheet I got off Amazon for $9.99, 10 by 7 feet. That's it, $10. At first, I used tape and I put it on the wall. Then I realized that this is going to be going on for a while, so I ordered from IKEA. This is this great. Let me see if you can go all the way. See those? So this anchor system costs $15 at IKEA. That's it. And what's great is, as you can see right now, I have two of them pulled all the way, like halfway across. I can pull these all the way across the room so that once COVID is over and everybody's vaccinated, I can bring people in here and get a whole band. But watch this. This is the beauty behind them. Whoa. Beauty behind them is I'm done for the day. I want it to look nice in here when my students come. So that's really good for if you have a cantor who's live streaming every week and who's doing things like that. I'm sure you've talked about this in live streaming too. Spend the $20 and get them, the $25, get them the $15 thing, have them put it up in their library, and suddenly they can put the synagogue. Magda actually does that. She has the synagogue. I told her, take a picture. She puts behind her whenever she's streaming. All right, so there's so much more I could talk about. I've already talked probably way too much. I'm going to.
Efrat, that's great. There's loads of things that you've covered there, and there's a lot of things to unpack. I do like your talk about getting the thing from IKEA, and there's many similar ones. We've got a number of questions that have kind of come in. So for people out there, as I said, to ask the questions, put them into Slido. That's how we're going to get the questions in. We're going to take the questions and we're going to put them through. You can vote the questions that you want to have answered. So you see a question up there and you want to have the answer to that. Just vote those questions up and that will be great. While we do it, just before we do, what would be really, really good is to actually to see where people are coming from. So I'm going to just ask a quick poll while people think about their questions is to what location are you watching this session session from. So please tell us where in the world you are watching this from. It doesn't just have to be your bedroom. I'm hopeful of the geographic location rather than the one room in the house. But as the questions come in, the questions are going to get bigger as the word clouds build. So it's a really useful way for us to see where people are watching. If you're interested, as talked to this, everything on this whole show is about learning. It's about what you can use in practicality. This is a practical tool. This is Slido that we're using here. As you can see, you just pointed your phone at it. You got the information. So it's really useful at the end of a service. You can ask people to put in the information about what you want to get back or some questions that you want them to answer. I'm going to stop that poll. You can continue answering the poll, but I'm going to take that poll down and I'm going to go back to the questions. Okay, so the first question that I've got here, because the Stephen one was earlier, but the first one that we've got that I'd like come in, and it's for the whole panel to answer as well as Efrat. From Erica Weisner, lighting setup for those with glasses. I can never completely avoid seeing the ring reflection. Any suggestions? Guy and then Efrat.
Yeah, if you put the light directly on axis, it's just like a mirror. It's just going to bounce straight back at you. I have a ring light up to the left right now, and a lot of people will use their ring light so that it lights the left and the right and top and bottom, and that's what they're famous for, is providing an entire lighting package with one light. But what I recommend, especially for people with glasses, is moving it up high and at a 45-degree angle, and then getting another light to come in and fill in the shadows from the opposite side. So that's the trick. Move it up into a 45-degree angle.
Thank you. Efrat?
He's actually right on. There is also one other trick. I was going to say pretty much what you did is you can't really get rid of reflections, but you can choose where they come from. So putting in front is great. But there is another trick. So one thing that is used by video and photographers and lighting is what's called bouncing. When you bounce light, you're not going to get the same reflection. So one thing that would maybe help is to get an even stronger light, but instead of putting it at you, you reflect it off of a white wall in front of you, coming from underneath or above, so that there's no shadows in front of it. By doing this, you're going to get a good lighting and you're not going to have that reflection.
So I do something very similar. I have an uplighter that I can turn off. You can see it's literally one of those lighters that was an uplighter that you had in the corner of a room before, but it just hits the ceiling, comes straight back at me. It avoids some of although I think I need to follow what Efrat was talking about earlier. I think I need makeup on this bit that seems to be growing. Powder. It seems to be getting worse. There's a few of us on this panel that suffer for that problem. Thank you. Right, the next question I've got here from Yuval Karen. I'm looking for recommendations for a free or affordable software to use to normalize music tracks. I used MP3 Gain in the past.
Before we can answer that, we sort of need to know what program.
I'm going to guess, personally knowing Yuval, it's going to be PC based rather than Mac, but that's fine. JLo followed by Oren on there.
I use Audacity, love Audacity, and it is free for both PC and Mac users. I've really learned quite a lot about it. It is not a typical DAW, a digital audio workstation, but it does have plenty of ways to work around some of those limitations. I also give a tutorial. If I could promote myself a little bit, Leo, I do give a tutorial on Mondays at 3:00 on Audacity if anybody wants to reach out.
That's a really good point here. We're here to to pass knowledge around, and the knowledge that we find from this event, as Marty mentioned, he runs a very similar one. A number of us are also on something called Office Hours. It's to share that knowledge so that we can actually all move forward on there. So the next person up was Oren. Thank you, Oren.
I use Reaper for pretty much everything audio. Reaper is a typical DAW. It's not free, but you can use it without paying, which you shouldn't, but you can. Meaning, It has it's a shareware that you can buy. The license is not expensive. It's $60, but they will not limit you in any way other than an annoying nag screen at the beginning. You can use it for as long as you like to evaluate it. You still need to pay the $60 because you're a good person, right? That's the rabbi in me speaking. The cheapskate in me is saying use it for what you need. And you do have to learn how to use plugins. And when you say normalize, do you mean adjusting the volume of different tracks so they'll sound roughly the same? Because the function that you'll find in most programs that's called normalize will not do that. It will get all of them to a peak level, to a common peak level, which is not what you want. So you have to think about what you're actually trying to do, because what you're probably looking to do is limiting or compressing.
Marty.
Yeah, Oren just hit on it. The word normalize has a specific meaning in audio mixing. So there's mixing tracks where you have multiple instruments or vocal tracks that you're trying to blend together. And then a function within an editing program is called normalizing, which, as Oren said, takes an individual track and maximizes the audio level in that track so that the peaks are just under clipping. That buys you a certain amount of flexibility, but just to be clear, that word has a specific meaning. So if you're looking for how to mix tracks together so that they blend, that would be an audio workstation or mixing program.
So I would take one stage further on that, on a very similar point. The problem I normally have, and I see quite often, is you get a number of tracks, a number of things submitted by congregants. So, for example, they give you Torah blessings, or they'll give you the blessings for the Haftorah, etc. And then when you go to play them, you'll sit there in a service and you'll see the one is super loud and the next one is really quiet. And when you were editing them, they sounded about the same, but you never. Sometimes you just so quickly cutting is looking at them. For my recommendation, I always set every single track at the end of it. I will normalize it to -3 dB. In other words, the peaks at 3 dB. I make sure that I've already cut that track to get rid of, and typically they've shuffled with the phone or they've shuffled with something, which is the highest peak of that video. So get rid of that out of the thing. So you've got the clean part, and I set it at -3 dB so that I know it's not going to be louder than the main live service, but it's not going to be too quiet. And if you in audio terms, -3 is actually 50% less. We could go and spend a long time on this, and I will lose myself in this, but it's basically that brings it down. So in the loudness terms, it will be somewhere that is not quiet and not too loud. Okay. Next question up that we had was the one from Stephen, which is, what software is suitable for a Windows PC that you can use to set up audio levels for use in Zoom? So I'll just show you the two that we're using here on this. There's two we're using. The first one that we're using in here is the Yulin loudness meter. So hopefully you can see that. Now what that is actually doing is it's working on the loudness of the voice, and actually I'm putting my microphone, and I didn't drop my microphone when I did it. So I'm just going to drop my microphone back down so that I'm about the right level. I've taken it too low. There you go. That's about right. And then what we're aiming for is about -23 dB, which is when the line is sitting there just around the between the red and the clear. And what this is doing is this is on a PC that's listening to Zoom and what is coming through. The other one that I use is the LUFS meter that comes from Waves, but on my PC it doesn't listen to me, so I need somebody else to talk so you can see the two next to each other.
Hello, Leo. I am talking and I'm seeing numbers change. What's going on here?
So what you're actually seeing is a LUFS is looking at is a loudness over a period of time. Typically, Marty, Guy, how long is the period of time?
I'm not sure how long that one is, but yeah, this is the Waves plugin. So you have to have it hosted by something. What do you have this one hosted by?
I've got this hosted on my PC, which is a Mac, and I'm running it through SoundSource, but it also through Audio Hijack. So, Marty?
And the delay would be dependent on the network and on Zoom. It could vary from 1 second to as much as 3 seconds of a delay.
So one of the reasons we do this is that you'll find that everybody on this call is roughly around the same level. We're not super where we're doing this to the level where we're absolutely dead on, but we want it so that you who are watching or people who are watching it aren't going to suddenly hear a really loud voice and a really quiet voice. And that's important, particularly in the service, that you don't go and you bring in somebody and it just throws the sound out of the service and what you're listening to. Okay, moving on. Right, the next question we have coming up, and as I say, put your questions into Slido. Anything you want to cover in the terms of tech, we can cover. Let me put my meters off. Please put them in, and we will. We're interested in your questions so that we can answer them and come back to you on things that you want to know. Next question we have up was from Tobias Moss. What tips do you have for a client that can help you successfully deliver? I've been self-producing for my team, particularly because I'm scared to delegate the feel.
That was a question towards Efrat's compilation choir video notion.
Efrat, you're on mute. We had to say it once in this call. It wouldn't be a real Zoom call if we didn't have to say it once.
You got me? I'm there now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, a couple different things. First of all, having a meeting in the beginning with all of, if you're doing, for example, a choir video, or if it's a video with 4 other cantors, for example, because I've been involved with things like that too. The number one thing is making sure that everyone is on the same page. Having expectations, etc., as what's going to be done with the video. Those things have to be thought out before you do them, because if you think out beforehand, you're going to have a lot more control over what happens in them. I've even seen it where I have a quartet of cantors, and they planned, okay, we're going to be on these 4 spots of the screen, and when I'm singing to you, I'm going to look this way. And so all sorts of great things can happen when you are communicating. Now, when you're dealing with a whole bunch of people, as I have with some of our giant choirs, it can be overwhelming. So what we did is we set up and there's many different ways to do this. I'm just going to tell you what we did, what I found to be the most successful, because I've dealt with messes too. The most successful way is to have a Dropbox folder with a file request. You then share that folder with the cantor, I usually say that for each choir, the cantor should also delegate somebody if they can. If they can't, they can do this. I've had cantors who do this themselves, some who are too busy, and delegate a choir leader. That person's job is to go in daily and check the Dropbox at the end of the day. And if they see a video that is not labeled with the person's name, to label it. Those kind of things are going to make a huge difference in seeing, oh, did all the 50 people who said they were going to submit it? If you don't have names on them, it's going to make it much harder. I've been in situations where I have 60 files loaded up because some person put up 12 of them, and I'm like, I don't know who's who. I don't go to the synagogue. So you have to have somebody, even if it's not the cantor or the rabbi who's coordinating, you have to have a choir leader or somebody who's going to go in and check these things. When you do that, it's amazing. I had the largest project I had was 45 choir members and a band and 2 cantors. And it was a breeze because that's what happened. I had both cantors going in and checking every few days. Another big thing, you have an actual due date and the real due date. Because you are going to be chasing people. So if we knew that we wanted to have a due date of February 12th, then we told people our due date was February 8th. And that gave the cantor 4 days to go after people, because as of February 12th, sorry, but if I have to redesign, something with 12 people, if it's like, you're going to have to move every single one of them, could be more, it's not going to happen without either extra money or what's called switch outs, where somebody's in for part and somebody's out. So But again, having a Dropbox, having somebody who goes in there and renaming files so that it's easy to see what's what and what's there, so that when time is ready to go, having a sheet or an Excel a spreadsheet or whatever that's shared between members of what is expected, due dates, it should have anything that you're using, any links, if there are videos online that they're having, everything should be in one sheet that all the cantors and the choir leader have, that they can all send out, because you don't know who's going to reach out. I have people reach out to me because somehow they got my email from synagogues. I'm like, I don't know them, but I can quickly send it off because I have it. I've discussed it with the cantors ahead of time, and we have a sheet that we've all put together for that project.
Okay, J-Lo, if we can take from you, and then after that, John.
Sure. Everything Efrat said, as well as a couple other things. Setting expectations is hugely important with your client. Knowing what you can deliver and knowing what they want, because sometimes they don't even know what they want. So it might be appropriate for you to share what maybe your style is. Typically, when I do a virtual choir video, I'm not all about people in boxes. I have more creative ideas, and I share that with them so that they know. The other thing I was going to agree with her is that a project manager on their side is extremely helpful, because they're the ones that will hunt down the people who miss the deadlines, because people will miss the deadlines. The directions, I use a Google Doc. I don't necessarily use an Excel spreadsheet, but a Google Doc that has the list of all of the things that you need to think about before you make your video, including little things that you never thought of. Put your phone in airplane mode so that you don't get a notification in the middle while you're filming your video. Little things like that make a difference, and make people feel more comfortable setting up and recording videos for themselves. It is quite difficult and quite a hard sell for the sort of demographic of people who sing in church choirs. They're not typically techie people. They think they can't do it. They haven't been singing this whole time. They think they have no voice. So it's really about kind of being a cheerleader and saying, yes, you can do this. And yes, you'll be part of this whole, you're a part of the whole, and it's going to be a wonderful project when we're done. But sometimes you really have to hold their hand through the process. You would agree, Efrat, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John. Oh, no
Lost
sound.
your audio.
You've got an air gap there.
Oh no.
We'll come back to you in a minute. So one of the things that was mentioned there, a personal thing for me, is in everything that we do, every live event, we create what we call a playbook. And the playbook is now we always use Google Sheets, because we can share that Google Sheet and we know it's the right thing. The right place, and we're always using the right one. That's the key bit to us. In the past, when we were sharing spreadsheets, you didn't know you had the right version. You didn't know if you had the right information. So using a Google Sheet enables two things. One, you have that, and two, because it's tabbed. We can hear you now, John. And two, because it's tabbed, we can put a tab about the information that certain people need. We can lock some information off, but we know that we're not saying, oh, well, in one document is the people's contact details and another document is the running order and all that. We've removed all of those issues. I think I've covered enough time for you, John. It's up to you.
I just wanted to say really quick that I meant to say.
We'll come back to you. Let's come back to John.
I was just proving that you need to check your batteries during a long time of using a wireless microphone. But I proved I'm not a very good audio person. But both of you talked about doing a lot of this. I've tried to come up with various syntax for naming files. Do I do a serial number? Do I do a date? Do I do the song? What order? Every one I try a new one, and it fails for different reasons. Do you have any magic on how you name them? Date, time, file, version, take?
We'll ask around, but I can tell you one thing that is a guarantee that it will not be the last version, and that's put the word final at the end of the document. So J-Lo, and then I think we're back to Efrat.
I just ask for first name, voice part, and song name. That's the only thing that the file should say. That way you know what you're dealing with. They don't do it anyway. That's when the project manager jumps in and renames it.
I agree with that. I wanted to say really quick, I actually meant to say Google Docs and I said spreadsheets. So I agree with you guys 100% on that. And I was like, oh gosh, so I wanted to say that. I'm not sure, John, if your question was as for files coming in or files going out, because we've had issues with both. I agree with JLo 100% on what she just said. As for files going out, I really think it depends on who you're working with and establishing a specific thing. For example, I work with a guy on audio for a lot of them. When we have the big choirs, he does the audio and I do the video, and we would send it to clients. So we actually, every day we would write a date. So for example, if we'd have the name of the video, then the date, and then a number, which one it was of the day. Because sometimes you'll have 3 different versions that you send out in a day. So it would say like 1 love, 2/12/21, and then 1. And that way, you know exactly what day it was on and the number, so that you can literally, you don't even have to worry about date modified, but you just look for the latest date and the highest number. That's my way, but it just depends.
Igor.
Yes, it's not about the titles, but I think that when I did the choir video, what really helped me to achieve quite a good result is then when I had a accompaniment recording, I sent it to only one person to record their part, their singing part, which is the main singing part. And then I mixed them together quite quickly as a draft version. And that version, just with the one instrument of accompaniment and the main part, I sent to all other singers. And that ensured that they all started at the same time. It does take longer to put it all together because there is an additional stage of this recording, but it does achieve a better quality of the audio and the synchronicity of all musicians. And this way you can also add more instruments as well.
So I'm going to ask a general question to the panel on that. You know, this last year has seen a huge increase in doing these videos where you've got the choirs or various people coming through. Do you think this is going to continue? Can you see you using this in your services going forward after we're in another side of this? Tobias, Joe, and then Efrat.
The editing's been a little brutal at times, but with our really young kids, getting them to have a compilation singing video that they could actually never pull off live because they're, we've had to time shift them and whatnot. We actually can get probably a better final product out of them using tech tricks than we could ever in person. So that could be one use. And then we get to and then the kids might, normally we've had kids show up for a Shabbat service and you get to use that piece the one time that they're in person. But this way you can drop it in at Hebrew school and you can drop it in on the holiday and you can drop it in at the service. So spawning more children.
JLo.
So yes, everything Tobias said, and because there will still be people who cannot be included in person. It will still be necessary, I think, to include everyone. So for inclusivity purposes, I would think this is going to continue. And I think it makes for a product, a better product and something that you can reuse.
And then turning to Efrat and anybody else on this point, but Efrat next.
I agree with everything that JLo and
Tobias,
that both of them said. The one thing I wanted to add, it's even more than that. We can use this in a whole new way. I'm a music teacher as well. So I have private students. And so we've been doing Zoom recitals and I will never stop. Even when my recitals are live again, we are going to be doing Zoom recitals because the more, and this goes for congregants and spirituality and feeling involved, the more people who are involved in what's the word, in helping someone, in supporting somebody, in whatever endeavor it is, whether it's in learning music, whether it's in spirituality, the more people that are involved and are giving positive reinforcement, the more likely that person is to succeed and to continue. And when I have a student who has an aunt watching from Spain and a grandmother watching from France, and and they're all able to be constantly involved. I mean, this is a changing world, and it's amazing what we can achieve with this. We can can actually grow as entities outside of our own physical communities using this now, and involve people who are in, I mean, there are people where there are no synagogues. I grew up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and there was only one option. And honestly, I wasn't crazy about it. It would have been so nice at that point to have found another congregation that fit me better. And now we can actually do that for people around the world. And using videos is a great way to involve them. Using streaming, you know, between I saw, who was it the other day that was saying something about having videos. I was watching actually the old thing about having the videos. You have videos where you can watch the people who aren't in there while you're in the synagogue. So you're connecting with people who are part of your community, even if they're not physically nearby. And it's amazing.
Yeah, I know we're going to cover more to do with hybrid another time. Crystal, I saw your hand up on this.
I was going to say one of the things I would point out is that not only is this fantastic for archival purposes, but it's great insofar as getting your congregation, your group out, giving this as something to attendees, et cetera, to kind of keep for their own archive. And another thing that I don't know if anybody's thought of, but with regard to potential rentals of spaces, things like that, it gives you kind of a value add to say, hey, look, here's all this great pre-recorded music you could use for what you're doing if you've got rights and what have you. So that's a thing.
So for those, just a side issue to know, and we'll cover it on another thing, is Crystal has an extensive knowledge of rights and how to deal with rights and the issues that are around there. So we're just fabulous to have her here, but it's something we'll cover another time. Next question I have is from Yuval Karen. How do we access the links and the resources in the presentation? So we'll actually put the links that Efrat has shared with us. We'll actually put them in the YouTube and on the Facebook posts so that you can actually follow those links there. So I'll update and add them onto there. That's it. The next question we have from Tobias Moss. What are the main factors that start making a computer get overwhelmed when doing compilation videos like this?
Leo, we lost you.
Mute on myself. I know. Efrat is the first person on here, and then Marty.
So the main thing I found is RAM. The more RAM you have, the easier it is to have more and more files being involved. Storage can also make a difference. So for example, on my computer, I keep everything on an external drive. Nothing, almost nothing. So even though I have 1 terabyte of storage, it's almost empty because that's also going to help with running. But RAM is really the thing. But there are ways to go around it. If I'm using one computer that I have that has a lot less RAM, it's waiting for the computer to finish rendering files, waiting for it to catch up to whatever you've done. Because sometimes you get ideas and you're like, I know that I'm like that. And I throw like 100 commands at it. And especially if it doesn't have a lot of RAM, it just needs time. It's like dealing with a little kid who just says, Mommy, give me one more time. I need to try. And that can make up for not having a lot of RAM.
Marty and then Guy.
So doing a Zoom call like this with a lot of people on it is not really very intensive. You do need to have a decently equipped computer with enough memory in it. But if you're editing a video like a choir video, the most important thing that you need in a computer is graphics memory and a good graphics card, because it is very, very graphics intensive. Generally, a card from NVIDIA with a minimum of 6 gigabytes of graphics memory will be quite sufficient.
Guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say drive speed. So SSD or NVMe or just a RAID with multiple drives in it striped together, because the second that you start getting video, especially picture-in-a-picture compilations with multiple people in it, then layers just start to have that drive head seeking in other places. And if you've got like some old 5400 or 7200 RPM drive, just one, it's going to require rendering, but you won't be able to do anything in real time. It'll just be able to do one base layer and not more. So drives.
Before we go to JLo on this, I was just going to come in on one point. this is really outside of where we're covering here, but on office hours on a Friday, they're covering using AWS and how you can use things like vMix and everything in AWS. So if you're interested in how to process a lot of videos and a lot of stuff on there, that could be an area to look at, is to look at office hours, and we'll have a link to office hours, but it's basically is it 6 a.m. East Coast? Am I right? Can somebody who's in the US tell me the right time for office hours?
6 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah,
6
10
a.m. Pacific. Thank you.
10
If
a.m.
you
on
want
the
to be
East
on the
Coast.
panel,
Okay,
if you just want
fine.
to watch,
So there you
answer
go.
questions or watch the YouTube, that starts at 7 for the first hour Q&A.
Thank you, John. There was a couple of other people who were answering on that question. So Crystal, and then I think it was JLo.
Muted.
Can't hear you, Crystal.
One of the big ones that a lot of people don't think about is just shut everything else down. If you're messaging people on Facebook and you're in Chrome and you're in your email, Chrome is a memory hog. Get out of it, close everything else down, focus on what you're doing. So that's going to save you a lot of system resources right off the bat.
Definitely what Crystal just said, especially, and the thing that clogs up my machine is high resolution videos. That's why I was actually quite surprised when Efrat said 60 frames per minute. I ask for 30 frames per second, 720p as a maximum, because if I stack those videos on top of each other, my machine just doesn't want to work. And I have learned, Crystal, that everything else has to be shut down first. You can only dedicate to the project at hand. I don't have that powerful of a MacBook. It's just what I'm using right now. But try not. So I actually later in there's a question, Leo, in Slido for
I've seen it. We'll get to it.
Okay,
we'll get to that at the moment. I've got David next on this question.
I just want to throw out there that the new M1 chips in the new Macs are just beasts. They're amazing, and there's possibly an event coming up in April where they'll be announcing the M1X chip, and they're just fantastic for this kind of stuff.
Great. And Brett, is that your hand up, Brett?
Yeah, that was my hand. It depends a little bit on what platform you're using. It also depends a little bit on what software you're using, right? There's memory leakage all over the place. And so on stuff like this, besides your graphics card, besides the type of hard drive that you have and how fast your machine is, sometimes the good software is actually a better idea. There are lots of tools out there, but if you're using a free piece of software and your computer is slowing down like nobody's business, that may be why. It's also important to have expectations that make sense. If you're only going to Facebook and Facebook only does 720, then maybe you don't need to be, rendering your video into 4K, even though it sounds like it might be a good idea for later. So think about who's going to be watching and what you're going to be using it for, and then what everyone else has said, close the other programs, and if you're still having issues, there may be something going on and there may be an update to the software you're using.
Thank you. Okay, the next question we have up is from Stephen Rabin, which is, what version of live captioning are you using today, and is it charged for or is it free? So those who are watching this in Zoom, of which anybody's welcome to come and watch this in Zoom rather than in Facebook or YouTube, there is live captioning running across the bottom. The live captioning is an option in Zoom if you're on the Pro account. It's not the first tier, it's the tier after. Can anybody else confirm which version it is? I think it's the it's the one below Enterprise.
Yes, it's the Pro version, because I actually just enabled it on my personal account.
It's amazingly good at what it can do, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't do language translation. And if you try and do it in a service and you have Hebrew, which obviously we do, it is quite an interesting thing that sometimes shows up, but that's what it is. Okay, next question we have is from Tobias Moss. How do you normalize audio across multi-element video, such as a crowdsourced virtual shader with many submissions? I edit in Premiere. Efrat is first up on this.
So you have a lot of different options. It really depends. As I think I mentioned earlier, if you have a choir, for example, that you're working with, and that you're bringing in all their videos, it will depend on your choir. I've had choirs that don't need any pitch correction. So you can actually, for example, within, I don't know about Premiere, but I'm betting it has pretty similar because it's also built for to work well with Macs. And I know Final Cut Pro, you have a lot of audio stuff within your video. So there's some things you can do within the video. I can do EQ, I can add reverb, I can change levels. So that can all be done within most video programs. But depending on what you want to do, you can also, which is what I do for some of the choirs where we know we're going to have pitch issues and we know we need to get real good audio engineering, where I will actually depending on who the engineer is and if they have a good video program, we pull the audio out from the video, because you can separate it in almost any video program. You can separate the audio from the video, and then you export the audio, send it to the engineer, they deal with everything, and then you bring it back in, which is another option. So it really depends on who you're dealing with for your performers across the board, and what program.
Okay. Marty, the question was about Premiere, so I can answer that afterwards, but Marty.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify, Tobias, what issues specifically are you concerned about? Is it audio levels or something else?
Yeah, levels, just in an efficient, if you have a 30-minute video of 10 different segments, how to efficiently feel like the levels are going to be pretty consistent from segment to segment.
The best way to do that actually is to do it at the source. You can try and fix things later, but the best way to get good audio is to capture good audio in the first place. So my recommendation would be to work with your singers and your speakers, whoever is presenting video, to have them record properly the first time. That way they can deliver you with good levels and without noisy rooms.
To clarify this, Marty, and maybe there needs a little bit of clarification, the question also was that about crowdsourced virtual shader. So this is actually more to do with people talking and singing, but they're going to be in a home environment. So right. That's the difference.
Right. Yeah. Wherever you're recording, certain basics. You want to record at a good level, and you want to make sure that there are no extraneous noises around you. Unwanted noises. There are some noises that are natural to the scene, and which are fine. But to get good levels in the first place is an important thing.
Hello.
You would just need to treat the audio in a separate program. I wouldn't use the audio portion of Premiere Pro. It's the video editor. Use a separate audio editing system to make sure it, and then export a 2-track, and then you put that into Premiere Pro. That way you have something to line up all your videos to as well.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the question as a Premiere Pro and an Audition user. So in Premiere Pro, if you select all the tracks, you select all of your things, and then you do normally where you do set the normalize the audio to -3. There is the option below it is normalize all tracks. And it will actually do the whole lot, every single element across the whole of the video. It will do the whole lot to -3 or -0. You can do everything in one go. But before you do that, you've got to get rid of the big spikes. So there are big spikes, as I said before, where there's anything that's there, or you add some additional cuts in to just cut out, so that you know that this bit which they were clapping or they were singing or they're being loud, just put an extra cut that you isn't actually doing anything, but that way that you've broken the audio tracks out. You can then in Premiere Pro, you can do something where it exports it straight to Audition. You can make changes in Audition, you save it in Audition, it goes straight back in again. So you can take the whole audio out, it goes straight into Audition. You can then run Audition. You can say you can add a filter in Audition to normalize the whole sound across the whole thing, and then push it straight back in again. You wouldn't even know that you've done any of the it doesn't have to, you don't have to do any realignments. Anybody else on that question? That's it. Okay, great. The next question that we have is from Joanna. I ask for 30 frames per second and 720, mostly because of my machine could not handle multiple high-res videos. I know this was to Efrat at the time, which says, how powerful is your machine? But it's a general question, really, and what levels people find they go to.
So,
yeah, Efrat.
So I actually am using a 2015 Mac with only 16 gigabytes of RAM. I want to take it and throw it out the window. Oh, what? Oh, sorry.
I only have 8.
Okay, so yeah, I know how you feel. And so when I had 50, I had one that literally I had the one that had the 45 people. There were 2 videos per person because it was a really long song too. It was 2 songs put together. So I had, I think, 96 videos in this one video. And I did it on 16 gigabytes, which proves that you can. I closed everything down. One thing I did is open the program, and I pulled in right before I went to bed the first night. I pulled in all the things and just let it run all night and sort of render all of those things in the background before I started working. I'm saving up and about to buy myself the new MacBook because I keep a book because I travel with my kid hopefully when things are back to normal again. And I can't wait to get 64 gigabytes RAM. But yes, you can do it on 16. I believe you could even do it on 8. If I'm doing it on 16, it's just a matter of being smart about spacing out and letting it run for a little bit and then coming back and doing more.
So everybody said very similar points here on this. My personal view at the moment is that one of the biggest mistakes I've seen a lot of people do, if mistake is the right word, is to get in 4K video. It sounds a great idea. It's something that you can do. But if you bring in a 4K video before you do anything, what I do with a lot of times is I just take it through Handbrake and just drop it down to something that I've still got the 4K video if I need it another time, but bring everything to the same level. Also bear in mind that for everything we do in the UK, we typically want 25 or 50 frames when everything you want to do in the US is going to be 60 or 60 drop frame or the equivalent, but getting them all to the same level also helps. I also find that running things through Handbrake first means that I'm not going to have drift. I eliminate drift by pushing things through, and then I'm dealing with a file that I can actually work on. I also would argue at the moment with what we're actually delivering out to 720p, good 720p is better than poor 1080. In my experience in a lot of things that I deal with. Marty, is that? Yep.
Yep. So I would ask, who is your audience and where are your videos going to be seen? What is the necessity for 1080p, high frame rate, high resolution video? High resolution, high frame rate video is great if you've got a lot of movement, right? If you don't have a lot of movement, if you're people who are sitting or standing and singing and talking, there's not a lot of fast movement, and there's no reason for 1080 frames per second. It's just not necessary. So why utilize all the resources in your computer? Why render out to that kind of quality if you don't really need it? 720p is considered high definition. 30 frames per second is more than sufficient for what we do here. 25 frames per second is often sufficient for what we could for these kinds of things.
I've just put up a poll because this is going to come up in some questions a bit later. What cameras, because we're going to cover virtual cameras in a session in a couple of weeks' time. So just, if you can, if you see the poll, please fill in the poll, and I'll go to Crystal.
I was going to say, with regard to streaming for gaming and what have you, and I'm not in full screen most of the time, so I'm in very tiny corner. When you're doing virtual choirs, as I understand it, it's predominantly little tiny windows. We normally at about 23 to 30 FPS actually, because we want to push the higher FPS to the game. So that's a thing. If you're working in small windows and you don't ever expect to have that large view, then don't sweat 60 to 4K. It's overkill.
Okay, great. Next question that we have, Stephen Rabin is back again. Can Efrat explain again her method of recording the choirs with separate audio first and its benefit? And I think that Igor had something to cover on this afterwards.
I actually agreed with what I do actually what Igor does, but I add another step to it. And I do think that step makes a huge difference. I do agree that in general, if, for example, if you're going to have just vocalists, then the cantor or the main vocalist should record theirs first, and everything should be done to that. If you have a guitarist, then the guitarist and the vocalist should record, the main vocalist should record first and use that. And if you can get it mixed first, if your audio person can do that, it's great, because they're already going to have a bass and they're not going to usually mind because they have everything to pull it in. But more than that, the big thing that I think makes a difference is having video. If they're going to play it, usually they're going to be able to watch it. And watching somebody sing, and especially if you have somebody who tends to conduct the choir, you're going to have much more chance of having them coming in together and ending together. You can even have them cutting off, because again, they're making this video while the music is in the background. So they're singing along to it. So they can do whatever they want in that video. It's not being used for the video. It's being used specifically to help everybody be together. And especially when it's not, when your choir members aren't professional and they're not counting exactly where they have to come in. Even with that, people aren't together, even professionals. But having a video where somebody's going, just that breath, boom, because that's what we do live. And so having that in front of us, being able to watch it, it just adds a whole nother level to just hearing it.
Yes, I don't have anything to add. I just want to repeat all the steps which I said before. It's the first to make the accompaniment, record accompaniment, then to send it to the main part, so the singer who does the main part, and then mix the two together and send it to other musicians and other singers as well, so that to record it in bass. But I think that having video is a really, really good tool, and it makes it even better. So thank you, Efrat.
Marty, and then we'll move on to our last questions.
And that's why choirs generally have conductors, because visual cues to a crowd of people who are all singing are very important.
It is, isn't it? When you sit there and you watch and you wonder, why is there a conductor there? That's why they're there. Thank you. It all makes sense eventually, doesn't it? Next question from Igor, who is in the panel. Is there a way to live stream music, e.g. piano and vocal, with two or more remote musicians in different locations? So I'm going to go to Marty on this one first, and I'm going to ask David to answer, even though he's just shaking his head.
There are a couple of software platforms that can be used. They can be tried. Jamkazam, Jamulus, there are a couple of others. There are some restrictions. They have been used successfully, but there are some restrictions, like the distance between players, the quality of your computer, and the quality of your internet connection. They're iffy. You could try them, but they're iffy.
I was just going to say, Bekitsur, the answer is no. I mean, it's Yes, there are tools out there, but it's that latency is just not something that we just haven't cracked that nut yet when it comes to audio latency. So.
Oren and then Efrat.
Yeah, last week we said pretty much the same thing, that Bekitsu, no. But sorry. And you can still play around with it and make it sound almost like it works. That depends on what kind of music you're making. That depends on what the level of experience of the musician is. Depends on the chemistry between the players. There's a cantor I often work with, and we managed to do some great stuff with me on guitar or on piano, and her singing, or her doing some soft accompaniment. The key is not to choose metric songs, not to choose anything that has to be in key. Nusach works fantastic if you're just doing nusach and accompaniment. Doing Enkeloheinu and ain't gonna happen. Don't. Forget about it.
I had Efrat and then J-Lo.
So I actually love what Oren just said. It's very true. While you may not be able to do things where you're both playing in time, you know, dun, 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 you can do things like and then and back and forth works wonderful. I've seen lots of people add that to Zoom concerts so that they can have some more live feel within there. Another thing is, yeah, while you may not be able to perfectly do that, one solution that I've done and a few other people I know have done is to do half live, half recorded. So you record your band or your 2 or 3 musicians and you create a video where there's a center space that's empty, and you use it the same way I'm using my backdrop, except with OBS. You put it into OBS and it plays it and you're singing in front of it. And so you're live with your accompaniment, which is not live, but especially if you have those people on the Zoom, it's going to feel almost live because you're live. So it's not exactly the answer, but it's a go around.
That's wicked clever.
Yeah.
Another simple workaround is to have, say, piano and vocal. So you have the piano recorded and you, as the vocalist, sing over the recorded piano, but you could share the screen with the piano player who's in the room live at the same time, pretending to play along, and keep the microphone muted for the piano, because they won't be able to tell if you're exactly in time. So you are still both sharing the screen. Both of you are contributing musically, with only one source of sound, which is the vocalist's mic and the recorded track that the vocalist is playing.
So I'm hoping for a future session to have a musician in from Israel who is actually is due to join us, but he's actually being presented his new composition has its world premiere today. But we did an event with him before, Boat, and he has been able to do Boaz. Sorry, it's one of those days. Thank you, Oren. Boaz, he has been able to do some things exactly as was said before, where you're not exactly playing together as in time, but it comes across. Last question that we have from Erica Weisner. What is the best technology for successful use of pre-recorded video within a live service? Guy, I have for this first, and then Efrat.
Yeah, I'd probably say something simple like the A10 Mini. This is a $295 switcher, and then you use something like some kind of deck to play out. There's a Blackmagic Hyper Deck, or you can get a Pi, or you can have it on a MacBook or something where it's a quick time and you just take it full screen and hit play. I use vMix a lot, so like here I can cut right in just with the click of a button and the video starts playing. And I have this queued up on my Stream Deck on my hand, and I can just cut back and forth to whatever it is that I want to play up. So 2 options, A10 Mini or vMix software running on a PC and some kind of gaming laptop or something like
that. Crystal.
I've actually been researching some alternates for that, and one of the alternates I saw was somebody had managed to hack because I have a Launchpad by Novation, which is normally a MIDI controller, but they've actually scripted it so that it can do macro commands on computers. So if you're a nerd and you like to hack things, that is an option to have a whole bunch of buttons for really cheap.
So, Igor, and then I'll come back. Yep.
So if I would choose the cheapest option, I would probably line up everything on the PowerPoint presentation and just embed all the videos in the order I want to show. And this way you don't see the mouse clicking on play. You just push the next button on your keyboard and it plays automatically. So it doesn't give you flexibility of changing the order of the slides and of video. But if you know the order of your videos in advance, then just line up all of it on PowerPoint and just start the slideshow. So that would be the cheapest option.
Oren.
I really wish Brett was still here. He had to run to the synagogue for a concert emergency, apparently. But PowerPoint is great, but the problem with it is your files are going to be humongous, which may or may not work. What Brett is really the expert at is using something called ProPresenter, which churches have been using forever, and synagogues are only now starting, which is a much better and easier way of integrating a lot of AV into your services. I think that he should probably do a full presentation on it.
I've got it
What's
down
it called?
for Brett.
ProPresenter.
ProPresenter. And the key difference also is that ProPresenter is designed to also control the screens in your sanctuary. Which may sound alien to a lot of people. A lot of this was a year ago. But when you start thinking where you're going, and screens don't necessarily have to be physical screens. A good example is with Igor. Igor has got some beautiful Jerusalem stone walls, and they project images onto it rather than it being actually a big screen that's up on there. So when it's not on, it's just a stone wall. And I think somebody else has got that in their sanctuary as well.
Yep.
In this panel, I think it's Tobias, isn't it? You've
Correct.
got Jerusalem stone as well. So that's a great way of doing it. This leads us really nicely onto our last things and also to cover where we're going next. So our next session, we've got Passover coming next week. So we're not going to be here next Sunday or the Sunday afterwards. Our session after that is on the 11th of April, when we'll have Paul Richards, who is from PTZ Optics. They are a manufacturer of cameras, but Paul covers a wealth of information where he does a lot of videos. If anybody's seen, he puts out a lot of videos about everybody's products and how to use them. And he's going to be coming to talk about how to put PTZ, which is pan, tilt, zoom, so it's a movable head camera, how to put them into your sanctuary and how they can sit with it being in an intrusive way and how to use them. And following that, the week after, we're going to have David, who is still in the panel, and why we asked the question about virtual cameras and overlays. David, do you want to just give 2 seconds of what you're going to cover?
Yeah, we're just going to look at a few different options on how you can specifically in Zoom or Google Meet or any of these other sort of meeting platforms, how you can use virtual cameras, which really are not their own thing. They usually live within streaming software to up your game, up your presentations, to be able to, as you were saying before with the 810 Mini, which is sort of a hardware version of what we're going to be talking about. We'll be looking at the software versions of how to do that.
So I just want to say goodbye to a couple of our panelists who are disappearing. JLo, Marty, Crystal, I think, is already gone because I know they've got another thing. So thank you for coming with us today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I'm just going to go around quickly if anybody has a last minute things before we sign off.
I'm actually
last minute tips. Efrat.
I actually have a question. Guy, how do you do this with your background? Is that your background or are you using a background because it's all blurred?
Yeah, That's my real background. It's just that, like, if I put something up to the camera, it's
Oh no,
just
I'm
a shallow
sorry.
depth
I
of
meant
field.
David. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, guy.
Yeah, so I'm using a Canon A6400 with a Sigma lens,
So
which
you
has
blurred it all. Okay, okay.
well, no, it's so the lens that I'm using, it's called a bokeh effect, Bokeh,
Yeah,
and it's the
underside.
particular lens that you use
That's what
that
I, okay.
allows
So
you
it's
to.
not anything, it's
There,
nothing
there,
through the computer.
there are software tweaks that you can do to create this. My experience is they all look terrible.
You're gonna have to
I
tell me
think
about this lens.
we'll cover that. So there's two ways we can cover that. First of all, for anybody who's here with us in Zoom, or if you want to join us in Zoom, you would have been sent a link to the after show get together, so you can join us for a chat before, if you want to join us. If you'd like to join this panel is for you to help others that are there. As Efrat put her hand up and offered to her assistance a couple of weeks ago, we want people here to assist others to grow and to share our knowledge. Please reach out via the links, reach out to me, DM me directly in Facebook or on YouTube. You'll get the links to my email address of leo@mindell.com, and we welcome that input, because there isn't this time last year, this was all brand new to every single person, or virtually everybody in here, and we've grown and grown and grown and learned our experience. I thank everybody that's been involved in the panel today, and we look forward to seeing you after Passover.